Hello, y'all on YouTube. This is Rob with Rob's Nerdy Knives. Today I have an interesting Rob's Rambling, and I'm hoping that you can kind of guess what it is based on this. Really, the question is, and you may have been asked this question before, and I've actually been asked this question on my channel, you know, indirectly or in ways, and then I've even been asked by other people, and people have told me, you only need one knife. And I'm like, okay, one knife, all right, just one knife. Is that one set of knives like this? You know, this is a little sample here, right? Or is it just like literally just one knife? You know, and you know, part of my rambling, I kind of want to pick that apart a little bit, because some people will be like, you just need one knife. And I really want to ask back, you said, are you sure about that? One knife, right? So you need one knife to, like, you know, cook with in the kitchen. You share that knife, you carry it with you when you're cutting like branches, bags open outside, you cut all your boxes. You're going to use that same box to cut your meat, your steak, your vegetables. You can use that same knife to, you know, cut fertilizer, a bag open, cut open a bag of mulch that probably is, you know, tainted with manure. You can use that same knife to cut some branches. You can use that same knife to, you know, really, is that the same knife you're going to use for everything, right? And when you really think about that question, it's kind of a dumb thing, you know, to say just one knife, because no one really has one knife. Almost everybody, if you have a house, an apartment, or home, you're going to have more than one knife already. You will. A lot of people already have more than one knife. They will have a bunch of kitchen knives. They will have, you know, butter knives. They'll have steak knives. They'll have all sorts of knives. They'll even have, maybe in their toolbox, they'll have little knives to, you know, box cutter knives. They'll have maybe a pocket knife. They'll have a fixed blade knife, you know, maybe, and they don't realize that they have more than one knife. But when they see people with lots of pocket knives, they're like, well, you just need one. You know, and my question back to that is, you know, once you get into knives and you know a thing or two about knives, right, and you've experienced them, you ask, okay, which is the one knife that you'd say that I only need, right? You know, maybe there are days I want to carry a really nice knife, but I don't want to look aggressive. So I want it like a little gentleman's knife, and I want to look very discreet or something like that. And I want to carry a little Dan Carrier, a DTF, or a Urban EDC LC, something like that. That's, you know, that could be one knife, but, you know, maybe I need to go out and cut some plastic hoses and some boxes of manure and stuff like that. And then do I need a Shark-Lock, you know, an Andrew Demko 80-20.5, you know, an S35VN or 3V steel for hard use cutting? Is this my one knife with a Shark-Lock? So it's super solid, you know, great knife. Is that my one knife? You know, do I just need one knife, and I need one with a hollow grind to do some thin slicing with a point tip so I can cut into that packaging box? Is that my one knife because I like the way this looks, you know? But this one's 20 CV. Do I need a knife that's maybe Vanex Super Clean? You know, this is Vanex Super Clean, and Vanex Super Clean is a steel that's highly water resistant, corrosion resistant. Am I working out in the salt water? You know, maybe I work on salt water one day and then the next day I don't, you know? And is this my one knife that I need right here, you know? And then the other question is, you know, am I in a situation where I need one knife so I can open and close something quickly? This is not a defensive tool. This is a regular knife. It's an OTF, out the front, automatic. And it's just a way of being able to use knife one-handed. So I can come up here, I can still use my cuts and everything like I do one-handed, but I can close it and open it one-handed. That makes it very convenient to use, where I don't have to use two hands, right? And it really is very safe, because when I'm holding this and I'm cutting everything, it works really well. So there you go, one-handed knife. Is that the one I need? Now, it doesn't have a glass breaker like some people think you must have, right? Or do I use like this one right here? Like, there's a cheap version of this that's steel, and AR. Oh my gosh! I had a brain fart here. I'm trying to think of their proprietary powdered steel, ARRP M9. Yeah, ARRP M9 or something like that. Anyways, that's their custom steel. But this is a S35VN blade steel on this one with the titanium scales and a micarta inlay. This is really nice. But is this just my one knife? What if I scratched up but I want it to look black? You know what? Is that my one knife? Now, what if I cut open some chemicals and I get some chemicals that could be poisonous and I want to cut a sandwich? Is that my one knife, right? I don't think it's a fair question if you don't understand the person. It's like saying to a carpenter, you need only one hammer, right? Would you tell a carpenter you need only one hammer? Would you tell a carpenter you only need one chisel? Would you tell a carpenter you only need one saw? I think that would be idiotic, right? Would you tell a mechanic you only need one wrench? You only need one screwdriver? I mean, that would be idiotic to say. If you know how complicated an engine is, you would never say that. Would you tell your spouse, your female spouse, that you would say, hey, you only need one pair of shoes? Now, if she told me I need one pair of shoes, I'd be like, okay, it's got to be a good pair of shoes. If it's only going to be one pair of shoes, I'm going to go spend some money on it. But if I only have one pair of shoes, I can make it work, right? As a guy, I can make it work. Now, ideally, I would at least want a pair of dress shoes and I want a pair of casual shoes. So, I would try to argue for two, but could I argue? I wouldn't argue for 50 pairs of shoes, right? That would be ridiculous to say that. It would be like you only need one shirt, you only need one pair of pants. So sometimes when people say you only need one knife is that they feel they're overwhelmed by this. And I think they don't either understand the collection aspect, the enthusiast aspect. They don't understand the functionality of the tools and how some of these are different for different purposes. They don't understand it. Like, for instance, my sister-in-law, my wife, they both had wrist surgery and some wrist issues. And doing the flipper works and using the button lock closing it works. So this is the WE Knives mini valves, right? It's a Farron Forge design. So if you do one hand with flick it open with the flipper and then you do the button lock to drop it, they can do that. But they have a hard time with knives that are frame locks. So if you flip it open and you have to do this, they can't really push this. It doesn't work for them. The muscles in here, they have some issues, right? They've had some injuries. So this is not going to be the one knife for them, but there may be a time and a place where they like that knife and can sort of use it, right? So what is that one knife? And the thing about button locks are great. I do not recommend button locks for super, super hard use. I would not go out and bang on a log or brick to try to break it open. I would not try to do, I would not try to do something really crazy with this knife. I wouldn't try to break open and cut into and really hard push bang whatever. Button locks aren't made that. They have a plunge lock. The way it works within the blade, it's by definition with vibration and shock and stuff like that. It could disengage the blade, It would be harder on some than others, basically, based on how strong is that spring in there. So that is one reality you have to consider. But it is, it's not the best hard use type of knife. If you're going to do hard use, I would go with a frame lock, right? They work really great. They lock up really nice and solidly. Frame locks are always fantastic, or I would go with something that's a liner lock, and this right here is a liner lock. It locks up in here, titanium liner lock with the, I don't know, is that a steel insert? I think it might be. Is it a steel insert? No, it's not. So it's a carbidized, probably tip on that steel, on the titanium that then engages the back of the steel right there. But anyway, so, this frame lock or this liner lock is pretty good, but it is a thinner piece of metal. Some frame locks are a little thicker, right? Their engagement's a little bit better. And with that, even that can fail. And then you have here, this is like a compression lock, which is like a liner lock, but it's Spyderco version now. It's a button lock compression lock. It's really what the Para 3 and the Paramilitary 2 and the Smock all have compression locks. And I think the Manix 2 and the big Manix, I forget what that one's called, but Manix XL, those are all compression locks, right? So they're different. But again, it's a single bar kind of lock. Then you have the Andrew Demko AD 20.5. It's a shark lock, a super solid lock. Some people argue, Scorpion lock is much stronger, blah, blah. Okay, fine, whatever. But these are still both really, really solidly strong knives, right? And this shark lock is going to not lock that thing up so solidly back there. That's a fantastically strong blade and lock. So there you go. Would that be my one knife? I would find it really hard, and why, if my knife is that important, why wouldn't I have a backup? If I lose the knife and I needed a second one, I would like to have a backup. Even if it's a nice knife, there's a chance you could lose it. Someone could steal it, and you still need a second knife. Then I would go hunt for a new knife. If I only have one knife and there's a limited run of this, I'm not going to be able to probably find that same knife, and I have to order it. It's going to take a while to come in. I could be without a knife for a while. So just having one knife, to me, doesn't always make sense. It doesn't. For just a logistical perspective, right? Having one knife. I like to keep a knife in the cars, so that if we have an emergency and you're out and you don't happen to have a knife on you, the car, there's a knife in there. If you have to cut something, you hit something that you run over some cable, tire, whatever, you got to cut it off. You want to be able to have an emergency knife to cut something, to get out of it, right? you run over a piece of rope and it's tied up in your axle, and you got to cut it free so you can keep driving and not ruin your car, your engine, your brakes, or whatever, your rims, whatever. Sometimes a knife is nice to have around. So I need more than one knife in those situations. And I think to say you only need one knife also assumes you already have a judgment call about the other knives. The other knives aren't, they're useless. They don't seem to have a purpose. But that could be very short-sighted by some of these people. They don't really understand the purposes of the knives, right? Now, granted, some of us probably have some knives that are just eye candy. They're just there and they don't serve a purpose. And I get that. When I started collecting originally, I bought some knives that I felt I should buy because everyone has them and you're supposed to buy them. And I'm supposed to love them, and I didn't. And I found out later on, someone told me, you have the right to buy the knives that you like, that meets your aesthetic, pleasing wheelhouse, what you like to use and look at, and what works for your hands and how you like to use a knife. That's the type of knife you should pursue. You should not just buy knives because other people said, this is the knife to buy. That's just my opinion. You can disagree with me on that too, by the way. You do not have to agree with me, but I just want to give you permission to not feel like you're obligated to buy those knives. If you didn't know that, you don't have to buy those knives. Buy the knives you enjoy. Buy the knives you want to buy. Buy the knives you want to keep in your collection. Now, if you want to go out and get every knife to have in your collection, go do that. That is your choice and your decision with your money. But you don't have to do that. I don't care if anybody tells you that you have to do that. Personally, I think that's idiotic and that's manipulative and controlling. No one should ever tell you to do that. Now, I get probably in the knife review industry, you're supposed to have some certain knives. I don't follow that. I'm kind of the variant, if you will. I don't follow the norms of knife reviewers. I don't have certain knives in my collection because you're supposed to have those in your collection. Sorry. I have a bug out. You know why I have a bug out? Because I like the bug out I bought. Not because I felt like I had to buy a bug out. I had a black bug out with the Elite G10. Didn't want that one. But I found a bug out with the aluminum milled scales, an M390. I like that knife. I bought it. I enjoyed it. I think it's fantastic. I've tuned it up to be beautifully drop shut. The phosphor bronze works gorgeous on that. It's a great knife. But I bought it because I like it, not because I felt like I had to buy it. And guess what? I carry it. I use it. I use my knives. That's what I do. You don't have to do that. You can buy knives you never use. It's okay. You can buy two of everything, so you have one you use and one you don't use. Or you can buy every knife you want to collect and never use them. It is your choice. But for someone to tell you you only have one knife, you should only have one knife, I think it's short-sighted. It's like, can I look at your life and see what you only need one of that we think you're kind of being excessive about? I guarantee you just about anybody is excessive with something. I mean, granted, if you've been stripped poor and you're living as a homeless person with nothing on the street, you might not have anything. But even then, I'm sure in those cases, there are sometimes when they hold on to something more than one of because they know they need it. And someone else might say, well, you don't need two of those, right? So there you go. That's my thought on you only need one knife. I don't quite agree with that. And I would actually make, I think, a rational, good argument against it. And then I would challenge that person back and ask them, why would you say that and why do you feel that? What's your perspective on what one knife means? That's the question I have back. So if you're that guy or gal that says, hey, you only need one knife and you're watching this, and you're like, yeah, that's what I would, but you're like, oh, wait, I didn't expect. Hey, tell me why you think I need one knife. You know what? This is a discussion. I'm not mad. I'm not defensive. I'm not offended. Please comment down below. Share your thoughts. I mean, for real. If you feel I only need one knife, I'm okay with you feeling that way. It really am. Guess what? I'm not going to have one knife, but I appreciate you feeling that way and I respect that you feel that way, but I won't agree with you. Now, if you are a person who thought that and are changing your mind because you're now seeing all the choices and the aesthetics and the beauty and the design that's out there and you're like, wow, this is all cool. Why don't you comment down below and let me know too, maybe how you transitioned in that kind of phase of collection, in your knife collection, your knife enthusiasm. How did that transition? How did you go from, I just have one or two knives to, ooh, I need more. And also the next thing you know, maybe you had a little sleeve that had 6 knives, and then you have a sleeve that has 18 knives, and then you had a little, ammo box that has maybe 26 knives, and then now you have a box that has 36 or 40 knives, then next thing you know, you're like one of these guys that has 3 or 4 boxes that can carry 118 knives, and you've got them stacked up in your room because you have so many knives in your collection. And probably a collection I would love to look at and appreciate and enjoy with you, and I'd love for you to share someday, and I'd love to be able to like touch some of those knives. But guess what? That's your aesthetic, that's your collection, that's your thing, right? I'm not gonna, I had a Den Carrier 904 Integral, loved it, love his designs, by the way. Then he came out with this one, and it was multiple deployment. It had a flipper here. You could do the flipper, right? It's a little smaller, mind you, and you can do the front flipper, right? It's a little smaller, and it's got a fuller, so you can do the reverse flick. All of these work really, really nicely, and it's a little smaller, as you can see. I get a grip. I'm just right at 4 fingers. It's barely there, and even if you choke up, you can get a little bit better. But it is right at my 4th finger. This is definitely a medium to medium large. These are medium large hands, large and widthwise, medium and lengthwise. So this is going to be for someone medium to medium large hands. Really, I don't think you should be bigger than a large or extra large for this, unless you're okay with 3 finger, right? But this is a great little knife. I like this one compared to his other one. Now, if you said he only needed one, I would have been stuck with the other one, probably be trying to make that one work and not be happy with it. This one I like. I like this one a whole lot more, and I'm way more happy with this knife, this design and everything. It's even got a little recurve, just ever so subtly there. It's got a little, I think, a drop point. I guess that would be a drop point. I don't know if that's a spear point, but it's a drop point. It's got a little belly here, so I don't know. That's a nice knife. Is this my one knife? But what if I need a big knife? And I got to go survival, then maybe I need a fixed blade knife, and I do have a Rockwall Praytheon that I enjoy. Not Praytheon, sorry, Dreadeye. Praytheon is the Arcane design. I had one of those. I sold it. That was just not a knife for me. I liked it. I got Arcane. I appreciate it. I've discovered that as much as I liked it, it had the same issue I had with the EMP EDC Relative. It just wasn't working for my thicker hands, right? I don't have little skinny fingers. I have meaty fingers. So I need a knife that I don't hit. I'm able to drop the lock bar. I got to be able to come in here and drop it. And so if I clear that bar and it falls down, I don't want that to come down, cut me, right? Like this would. I mean, this is fine. This clears. I'm good with that. So that's okay on there. But some of these knives, once you clear, you drop it, right? This clears the detent, and then I can go and I can drop it. We're all good there. But over here, if I drop this and it goes right here, right? I'm okay there, and then I release and it goes down. But let's say I had my finger down and I was waiting for this, it's going to fall right here. This part, because it's big enough blade, it's going to cut into my nail, and then at some point it'll cut into me right here, and I'll get a big cut or cut into my nail, and that'll be very uncomfortable. But because I can clear the detent by getting right there, I'm okay. So my point is, I don't need just one knife. There's purposes for each one of these, and I can explain that, and you can explain that, and I would love to hear your thoughts on that. Would you give me your feedback on that, your ideas, your thoughts, your experiences? I would love to hear them. I try to respond to them all. I do, and I really do appreciate people sharing those thoughts, because I learn from you. I have learned from my other people in my videos who share their experiences, and it's been very enlightening, and I appreciate that. I appreciate people's experiences. I do. You may completely disagree with me, and that is okay. I'm okay with you disagreeing with me. We don't have to agree. I'm not going to be mad or offended if you don't agree with me. Matter of fact, I hope I challenge you to think more about this. And maybe you think about it in a way I didn't think, and you challenge me back, and then I start thinking differently about it too. Because I'm not so set in my ways that if I can't be challenged, then maybe my ideas aren't really all that good. If they can't stand the challenge, then my ideas probably isn't a great idea. Any great idea can stand the challenge of questions and the trials, right? And be put through the ringer, as they say. A good idea is going to make it through that, right? Bad ideas are the ones that are afraid to have that exposure, because they'll fail once they're exposed. They won't make it through all that testing. And I want my ideas to make it through that testing. So that's my thoughts on that. Again, I'd love to hear from you. Appreciate you sticking in. If you've listened this far, cool, and thanks. And I really appreciate it. And I would ask you maybe to like the video if you haven't already. And if you've already liked the video, maybe consider subscribing to my channel. And if you've already done that, maybe consider hitting the notification button so you can be notified of upcoming content. Subscribing and liking my channel really, really helps me out. It helps me to be able to produce more content. It helps my channel, and I would really appreciate it if you would consider doing that. And if you like all that, maybe also check me out over on Instagram at robs_nerdy_knives. That's robs_nerdy_knives on Instagram. Hey, thanks so much for watching today. Have a great day and a great week. Bye.